everyone. Today we're going to talk about business ethics, keeping appearances. Most of you know brands like Apple and Acer and Nintendo, but I would like to ask you a question here. Who knows Foxconn? Yes, this company, Foxconn, who knows it? Can you raise your hands? Only 2, 3? No, only. That's actually rather odd because it has been a lot in the news lately. Not as much as the death of Osama bin Laden, of course, but if you look good, you can see that there's a lot of news about it. And another reason, an even bigger one, next slide, yes, is it has a company that has over 900,000 employees. That is the biggest, the largest company that produces electronic parts in the entire world. To give you an idea, 920,000, that's more than the inhabitants of the province of Brussels, so that's really very much. There's even something in China like a Foxconn City. You got some pictures here of the Foxconn City. It's a place where the employees, they sleep with Foxconn, they work for Foxconn, they breathe Foxconn every day. And it's just their life, Foxconn, everything they know, if you understand what I mean. And the fact that it's been a lot in the news wasn't always good. Most of the time they were in the news because they had been having troubles a lot. And that is the thing where Diederik will talk about the troubles.
Well, life is meaningless. Every day I repeat the same thing I did yesterday. We get yelled at all the time. It's very tough around here. Signed, Foxconn employee. Well, this image is what you get as first result when you type in Foxconn at Google Images. Well, not quite the best publicity for Foxconn. Well, let me explain a little bit more. Since 2010, there were 17 cases of suicides of employees linked to Foxconn. Most of them simply jumped out of the factory windows or committed suicide at their dormitory rooms on the factory campus. For example, Mr. Ma, who unfortunately, whose life ended unfortunately on January 23, 2010. He was only 20 years old, just like us. Well, family and investigators found out that he hated his life, he hated his job. He simply had to wake up, go to the factory 50 meters further, work all day forging plastic and metal into electronic parts, and this 7 days a week, even night shifts and a lot of overtime hours, around 3 times the more than the legal limits, and this only for $1 an hour. And he had no social life. He didn't even get to know the names of the 7 other people he shared his little room with. Well, this story of Mr. Ma is only one of the few the last 2 years. And since this case and also the case of the lost iPhone, this was a case where an employee of Foxconn simply lost an iPhone 4. And this was the main reason why he committed also suicide. And since then, the media picked up on these terrible stories and charged Foxconn as a sweatshop with inhuman working conditions. Well, of course, that's not very good for the company's Foxconn publicity, but also for business partners such as Dell, Hewlett-Packard, and Apple.
Well, as Diederik has explained, this is indeed bad for Foxconn, for the image of Foxconn, but also for the companies who are close with Foxconn. And Apple was afraid that the bad publicity would affect their sale price, their sales. And so they started a full-scale investigation, and they found out that Foxconn didn't meet the requirements they want from their suppliers to have. So they actually forced Foxconn to take measures, and Foxconn, these are the measures that Foxconn took. They appointed several psychologists, and they opened up a care center where the employees could ask for advice or help 24/7. They even placed safety nets on the factory buildings to prevent employees from jumping out of the windows. A few days ago there was an article in a newspaper that stated that nowadays the employees at Foxconn have to sign a contract in which they must promise not to commit suicide. It's become that bad. Of course, Foxconn has also taken measures to handle the source of the problem, which are the low ethical standards. They tried to copy the Western method of doing of business ethics. They created a code of conduct, for example, but that didn't work out so well as they hoped it would, because the environment in China is totally different from the environment in the Western world. Yes, so in China you have also a lot of corrupt bosses and businessmen who don't really care about the conditions in which the employees have to work. They only want results, which demoralizes the employees at the large Chinese companies. But nevertheless, China is promising some better results in the future. A few years ago, they joined the World Trade Organization, which is a clear sign to the rest of the world that their economy is becoming more liberal and that they want to meet the Western standards of business ethics.
Well, I will say a little bit more about Western business ethics, because here the main idea is to keep all of your stakeholders happy, and that your company is not in conflict with the surrounding society. With stakeholders, we already know, we mean the owners, the customers, the employees, the suppliers, the stockholders, just everybody who has something, the government also, just everybody who has something to do with the company. And for that, most Western companies have a mission statement and a code of conduct. The mission statement is simply a written statement by the organization intended to communicate its aims to the customers and the other shareholders. And a code of conduct is a set of rules and principles for your organization for the employees and everybody who has something to do with the company, and it marks the rights and the obligations of the shareholders. Lately, most companies also have some kind of customer support or feedback to the customers, like a help desk, because keeping the customers happy is one first step to a successful business.
Okay, then if we compare this, the Western business ethics, to business ethics in China, it's a big difference. One of the reasons of the difference is the growth. In Europe and America, we have had a steady growth, so we can adjust our systems to the growth we're having and the things that are changing in our economy. But in China, they're having exponential growth, and they can't follow the steps to get their business ethics right. But the government is doing something about it, because corruption amongst officials in the Communist Party is always getting bigger. But also with regular people, they don't actually handle business in an appropriate way. That's because they can actually hide in the crowd, and the government isn't checking on anything, not even income. They just use a flat tax rate, and that just provokes even more corruption. They don't have to register anything, not even a name for a bank account. So that's why the government said they would implement some code of ethics. They set some rules about government buildings and flashcards, because some officials had 5-star hotels as offices. I don't think you would approve of that. But also some other things are changing. Guanxi, using your Guanxi network is actually getting out of Chinese culture, because now they're having a rule that governmental people shouldn't accept some gifts from others, and they shouldn't use their position or their power to benefit friends and family, and that's actually a part of the Chinese culture. Well, we can see that China is actually changing its culture to be a better trade partner, and a part of this is because of the media. It takes a big role in the change, because if media didn't pick up on Foxconn, there wouldn't have happened anything, I think. And well, some scandals should be in media, because the factories do things about it, and the government is actually taking care of certain unethical practices, so it should get better. So we can see that China is taking steps in business ethics, but it's only been a general agreement on this code of ethics, because customer care, etc., those steps are in the far future, I think. So I hope you learned something about China and its business ethics, and I hope Foxconn can improve even more. And thank you for listening.